Another thrilling episode of Dancing with the Bards. We last left off in the year 1913, where the SS Atlantica started its maiden voyage across the Atlantic Ocean on a heading for Boston, Massachusetts. But rough waters and nightmares have plagued the passengers and crew since the voyage began just 2 nights ago, and a strange creature has been reported climbing onto the ship from the murky brine. All evidence points to the beasts receiving aid from someone on board. It's up to the crew to foil this traitor's plot before the ship is dragged into the inky depths below. Featuring Ace as the mystic apprentice, William as the man of arms, Brooke as the helpful stowaway, and Ian as the first mate. And now, on with the programming. Welcome to the podcast, where this month we'll be covering Unfathomable, a hidden role board game designed by Tony Fanchi and Corey Konieczka, and published by Fantasy Flight Games in 2021. I am joined by Will.
Ahoy.
Brooke.
Hello.
And our guest, Ace.
Hi.
As we journey into the depths of madness for this game. In this game, at least one of your crew members have turned on their fellow man and is carrying out the will of their dark masters from below the waters. The goal of the game is to keep them from destroying the ship and its passengers until the SS Atlantic reaches the harbor of Boston safely. Before we begin, I'd like to talk about the Lovecraftian genre a little bit so we can get a feel for everyone's familiarity on the subject. With all of us living in New England, I think it's fair to assume that we're at least conscious of who H.P. Lovecraft is. The themes from what is known as Lovecraftian horror or Eldritch horror have wide-ranging impacts on tabletop games, movies, and other cultural elements. I figured we'd take a moment to kind of discuss what we might have seen as related to it, or maybe read the books, or played any games that relate to it. Some instances that we've covered on the podcast, things like Monster of the Week, have a lot of elements of Eldritch horror, for example.
I wouldn't have associated with that. That's a good point. That to me always screamed like Scooby-Doo style, which wasn't necessarily Lovecraftian in nature.
Yeah, it depends on the Scooby-Doo episode, I think.
I mean, it's definitely some of the plots are influenced by like Lovecraftian entities. But I will also say like Scooby-Doo is maybe not the best example because it's also influenced by like traditional classic monsters and other like mystery tropes throughout the years. But like Courage the Cowardly Dog and Grim Adventures is definitely like two that are big ones. Goosebumps is another one I would think.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons has an entire like section for like Eldritch horrors and
the occult
and warlocks and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm kind of removed from it. I hadn't heard much growing up about it. I'm not a huge horror person, so I've kind of come into this blind.
I also am not read up on my Cthulhu's and my big fish, so this is all new to me.
So I have the dictionary definition for Lovecraftian here. I feel like some people might like to hear what it actually is, because I feel like people hear the term thrown around a bit every once in a while, but it's not really something people go out of their way to learn about, which is fair, because it is from like the early 1900s. So, according to Oxford Dictionary, Lovecraftian, relating to or reminiscent of the works of U.S. fantasy writer and horror writer H.P. Lovecraft, Howard Phillips Lovecraft from 1890 to 1937, especially in depicting monstrous, misshapen beings from another dimension or universe, often in a sinister, antiquated New England setting.
So basically just where we live.
Does it always have to be New England?
It doesn't. So the setting is the part that I think is the most flexible, as well as like the time. Because I've seen a lot of people go with that horror from beyond the realm and apply it to science fiction. I've seen them apply it to modern day, to like older fantasy. It's become very prevalent in like a lot of tabletop games too. Like obviously Call of Cthulhu is going to be like the big one, but as I mentioned, Monster of the Week has a few elements, and Dungeons and Dragons have their own little section for it.
I mean, and just to tie back in like to the New England thing, I think it is important to note that New England has a lot of spooky history associated with it. And like I can think of at least one of H.P. Lovecraft's works that is based off of a real location with some real freaky stuff, which is like the Dunwich Horror, which is based on like the weird sounds that come out of the Dunwich mine and all that stuff. But I feel like New England just also attracts creepy writers in general. Stephen King lives in Maine.
It's the fog.
It's the fog.
It is the fog.
It's got some very Silent Hill energy.
Are we known for the fog?
We are.
I mean, New England is, yeah.
Well, is
like
England known for the fog?
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought they called it New England
smog.
I thought New England was known for the fact that we were the 13 colonies. Is that not why they call it New England?
Well, so multiple of those colonies aren't even in New England, because Virginia and what was the other one? Delaware are part of the 13 colonies. Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland.
Delaware, why would it be?
Jesus Christ. Like, New England was not like a series of states until relatively recently in our history, like late 17, early 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
It's all kind of just one homogenous entity.
And I think we were more like less speaking about the 13 original colonies and more just saying, if we're thinking about how people depict this area, it's like quiet fog on a pier where no one is awake.
Yeah. It's always gray and cold here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fish. Fish are scary.
And everyone's grumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I see that.
I mean, you'd be grumpy too if you only saw the sun 4 days a year.
I mean, I like it here. I'm pretty joyous. I'm pretty holly jolly. I don't, honestly, I don't think Eldritch Horrors would affect me. I think I'm too happy.
I mean, we've been living with them our whole life, and we've been fine so far.
My name's Ian, thank you.
And I'm just going to bring it up, like,
thank you.
The closest I got to,
I'm not an Eldritch
I guess,
Horror,
this
I'm a person.
genre.
Oh yeah. You're right. I'm sorry.
The closest I got to this genre would probably be the fact that, like, growing up in a Roman Catholic setting, misshapen things, angels, like that's more what I'm used to, which I guess would be classified as that because they don't have, like, they have millions of eyes.
I do like eyes, more sight.
Yeah.
Honestly,
so like that type of a monster.
But like, I feel like that kind of ties into the similar sort of like beliefs as like the Cthulhu mythos, where like they go to great lengths to never actually describe what they look like, just what they don't look like. And you see in like a lot of like biblical texts when people first see angels, they have to be like, "Don't be afraid of me, guy." Like,
yeah,
biblically accurate angels are pretty Lovecraftian looking thing.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the closest I ever got to this up until like college.
Yeah, so part of the elements of it I feel are I've only read one of his actual books, the Color of Outer Space, the Color Out of Space. I had to look up the title because it has been a long time, but it's all just like, it's less like actual monsters and more like what Will said, the idea of monsters or the unknown. And like the limits of the human mental capacity to understand things. From what I gathered, H.P. Lovecraft was kind of not entirely stable, which
no.
I don't
A
think
cursory Google search would tell you that.
Yeah, it would. He definitely was not a shining example of what humanity can be as far as certain beliefs of his. I will say he also grew up in the Jim Crow era, where he was kind of bombarded with propaganda and lived a very sheltered life.
Yes, but I'm just glad that it's taken on a life of its own and we don't necessarily put the man on the pedestal. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. His work is definitely transcended beyond what he put into it, and people have kind of made it their own thing.
The only thing that really stuck was his name with it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel the younger generations now, unless they really look into it and want to know why it's a Lovecraftian horror, in the next generation or two, I feel like he's going to kind of fade into the background as this, like, I don't know. He's not going to be as related to it as he once was because so many people took up the mantle.
You
And
also have. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh no, it made it their own. Like there's authors that are now doing it. You know.
Yeah, I was just going to tie into that. I mean, you also have better examples of less problematic authors that were writing similar styles, like Edgar Allan Poe, who still a little problematic, but definitely not as problematic as H.P. Lovecraft.
Not as in your face.
Yeah, he was respectable. Kept his problems underneath the surface, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. The name of Lovecraftian horror is also slowly changing as people they're kind of changing it to like Eldritch horror, and they've given it a few other names to kind of make it its own thing. Because at this point, the genre has kind of moved past that whole, like I said, antiquated New England setting towards a lot of other things.
Yeah,
I
a lot
just
of the
love the
horror
last
genres
name
kind of absorbed
Lovecraft.
it.
The
It is
last
a
name
good
is
last
just
name.
yeah.
it is a great last name.
Like,
But I can see
a
why
writer,
they're doing that.
yeah.
And I mean, he's got a great first name too. HP, like the computer.
Like exactly like if you turn that upside down, it's D4. He becomes a robot.
It's a lot. So I don't know if you noticed when I was reading the dictionary definition, but his real name is Howard Phillips, which is a lot less in your face.
I can
Better than
see why
Hewlett Packard.
Yeah. Better than Humpy Pumpy. Humpy Pumpy Lovecraft.
Ace, can you say that one more time, but a little slower so that I make sure I heard it correctly?
better than Humpy Pumpy Lovecraft.
I hate that so much.
Thank you.
My first the first time I knew what Cthulhu was, the first time I heard that name, I was looking through like old Steam games that I could buy really cheap, and I found this one called Cthulhu Saves the World, where some witch has taken the powers from Cthulhu and he can't get them back until he's helped save the planet, and he very reluctantly goes along with like a very bubbly hero to save the world.
Was it a fun game?
It was a JRPG. It was kind of fun. It was more funny than fun.
Okay.
At one point, he was stopped by like a group of Power Ranger parodies, and he had to get past them because they're like, "You're evil. We're gonna stop you." He's like, "Hey guys, I'm not doing that right now. I have my own thing going on," and they're just not listening.
That's actually pretty funny.
All right, so I think if we're all set on that, I think it's time to move into our score sheet.
Yeah.
Starting with number of players, I give this a 3. I think 3 to 6 is a pretty reasonable number for a hit and roll game.
Yeah.
It's not quite the 8 of Cosmic Encounter, but it can't all be perfect.
I was very on the fence about this one. 3 to 6 is what I traditionally give 3 stars to, so I'm not breaking with tradition. But this is one of the few games where I would say like 8+ is really kind of how you want to do this. It especially when you did the dry run, how many people were in your playthrough?
5.
That's not too bad. I feel like when you're at like 4 people and one of them's an imposter, the amount of actual management and maintenance, because like it was nonstop from the start. Like it started bad, and at no point in time did it get better. Got less bad, but it was still very bad multiple times.
So I gave it a 2 because I don't think the game is built for 3 players at all. Because you just don't have the skill cards to like handle that.
Yeah.
Because you'll just run out, which is what happened to us.
That was something I noticed during our playthrough for 4 players too, is that the skill cards don't really scale down. I will also mention that if you're playing with 5 people, you get 2 of the traders, 2 of the hybrids.
But even at that point, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, when you start getting to that point, like 2 traders make sense, potentially 3 with the cultist. It's still more doable because you just have more physically have more trait cards to play. Even if they don't necessarily benefit you, it just adds more to the game, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I gave it a 1.5 because 3 players, even 4 players was hard. I don't like when they say you can play it at that point and you still can't. Like, if it's gonna be hard, suggest it for a higher, and then people will do what they want anyway. But saying it would work with 3 and 4, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's like a game that I think it's supposed to be very hard to win, and that's something I noticed with a lot of the games in this that are kind of more on the complex side. You're not necessarily supposed to win every time.
Losing is fun, and I you can see that in a lot of games. The whole mentality of, well, you don't want people to win on the first or second playthrough because then they'll never pick the game up again. And
I mean, that's just my opinion on it, though. So, like, I can also understand how frustrating that is because I'm also someone who likes to win. So, like, if I'm losing, I don't think I've ever won a game of Unfathomable, and I played 3 games now. Oh no, I won as a trader, but as
I was gonna say that
As a
the
party,
innocents,
though.
yeah, you almost never win.
yeah,
I think that comes to like what I was saying before, like a balance thing. I do not feel like the game is perfectly balanced because I think when we were playing it, I said specifically, honestly, you don't really need a trader,
Yeah.
especially for like 4 people. If we were all working together, because Brooke was our trader, but only in the second half of the game, and
When we were already kind of up Schitt's Creek, there was
yeah,
no hope.
yeah, you didn't do anything to hurt us. It just happened.
Yep, I did not. I saw the writing on the wall and just let it happen.
I will be honest. Brooke is the perfect trader. I always assume that she's incapable of doing no evil, and therefore just immediately discount her.
I don't like being the trader. Normally, I don't like this genre of games in general. I did enjoy this one, although as soon as I became the trader, I no longer liked it as much. I don't like lying. It's not my thing.
Of all the people who to get the trader, I was interested to see what would happen if you got it. I'm only sad that we didn't get to play through more from that point.
Yeah, I've been trader in Menace Among Us a couple times, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind playing this game again and seeing if it happens.
All right. So if we're all set on that subject, going into inclusivity, I feel like we have quite a bit to talk about on this one.
Oh boy, yes,
Uh,
we do.
I'm gonna let you guys go ahead first on your thoughts on this one.
I hate the font so much. I had such a problem reading it in every aspect.
This
Like, you
game
have to
was
read
so
out the
much.
cards? No.
Yeah,
There's a
this
lot of
game-
reading.
It is a lot of reading, yeah.
Yeah, not even like the lore stuff, because every card has what, like 30 to 40 words telling you what action you can take with it, and it's on really small text because the cards are really, really small. It's difficult.
Yeah, this game was a lot. This is a lot. It was a lot of symbol matching. It was a lot of color matching with the symbols. The symbols are really hard to differentiate between each other. I spent the first half of the game thinking that the sanity was a bundle of grapes and therefore was the food. And I was trying to figure out why the stovepipe hat was on there and that was an indicator and what unit of metric that was. Turns out it was a tin can of food, but that's something that could have been done in color and would have made it a lot easier to understand. Why do all of these weird and obscure symbols for things? Like, the passengers kind of made sense. I don't know why 3 of them equals 1, but whatever.
Yeah, like the symbols were also kind of there were so many of them. I also noticed, like, even for me, the red and the orange between the what was the skills? Red was strength and orange was influence. They look very similar. And the symbols you can use to tell them apart. And I feel like for strength, at least, that's pretty self-evident. It was a muscle. Some of them were kind of vague. I think sanity was a brain and wisdom was a picture of a head and you could see the brain in it.
Yeah.
the symbols for the different monsters were distinguishable, but they didn't really stand out as this is Father Dagon, this is a deep one, and this is Mother Hydra. I feel like Mother Hydra probably could have looked a little more like a Hydra.
Yeah.
At least in the symbol.
Yeah, no, the symbol for Mother Hydra is the breaking of a ship, which is the action she does, which is not intuitive.
Yeah. And Father Dagon looks like a poorly taken picture of Nessie or something.
Yeah, and the deep ones, which you're going to be getting the most of, looks like a picture of Father Dagon.
Yeah.
That's what confused me so many times.
Yeah.
And the symbols for like the pick one, whether it's the navigate or the
ritual.
Ritual, thank you. Yeah. That one where it's just a left or a right. I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? Like, it's complicated, and I don't want to grade it poorly because it's complicated, but it's getting a bad grade. It's getting a 1.5 for me.
I gave it a 1.5, and then I remembered how many times we used the term deep. The deep ones, they're in the deep. It just got really confusing really quick.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that the deep wasn't an actual location on the board until
it is.
It is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's physically on the board, but it's not a playable area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's just the amount of times we said the word deep. I get it's super creepy and mysterious, but we gotta find some synonyms.
Yeah.
Every time I thought of the boys. The deep.
Yeah, like something like the abyss.
Yeah, that would be better.
Literally.
If calling it the abyss and the deep ones come from the abyss would have solved so much of my confusion. We're like, oh yes, move the deep ones to the deep. It's like, what? What's happening?
It rolls off the tongue a little better too. The deep ones swam from the abyss. Versus put the deep ones in the deep.
Yeah. Put them where they go, in the deep.
We just kept giving them names like fish people instead to be less confusing.
The fish
frog
folks.
people, fish people.
The monsters.
Yep.
That's the derogatory term, Ian.
I'm
that's
so sorry.
That's fucked up. Speaking of inclusivity, it looks like Ian gets a 1.
Oh.
So, comprehension. How well did we understand this?
So I gave it a 1. So I gave the inclusivity a 2 because I was thinking of it more like because it comes in a bunch of languages. Did we say that? I can't remember if we said that.
We didn't say that, but you're right. It comes in 12 languages.
It comes in 1,000 languages, everyone on Earth. 12. So that I gave inclusivity a 2 for that, and then I gave comprehension a 1 for the reasons we were talking about, like the symbols and the other stuff. So I found that more to be an inclusivity or a comprehension problem rather than the inclusivity thing. But I'm also not colorblind or dyslexic, so I don't really like to stand on.
I mean, I'll be honest. The next 3, inclusivity, comprehension, and then availability, just because I needed to find a place to put a half point. I've kind of all grouped these together for this game.
Well, you gave them the same score.
Well, I grouped them together in my grading.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 for comprehension. It's not the most complicated game I've ever played. Once you get into the swing of things, because after playing the game once with Larry describing how things work to me, I was able, I think, to more or less give an overview on the game, and I was able to understand it without too much fuss through reading the rules. It's not as much that it's, I mean, it is overly complicated in certain aspects, but I'd say it's more clunky than complex. It's just my take on it. The moving parts don't move well together, but they make sense for what they are, like the different dials for the sanity. If once they hit 0, you're done. You have 6 parts on the ship, you rescue passengers. The actions aren't overly drawn out unless you get the 3 deep ones card in the row, like what screwed us at the end. But it definitely has parts where it could improve. That is for sure.
I don't think it was necessarily a problem with understanding the rules. It was more about seeing how the different gameplay mechanics interlocked, and there were definitely times where there was no clear solutions to problems. There was no real path forward for us. It was just kind of like I said in the beginning, we kind of started out in a very bad position, and it kind of got worse from there. I feel like I played the game wrong, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I know you're not supposed to win every time in this kind of game, but it does feel like we started out on the wrong foot from the beginning, and we kind of just tumbled all the way down from there. And I don't think a game should leave me feeling like, what did I do wrong, rather than like, how can I play better next time?
I think it had a lot to do with our strategy, though, being that we were so new.
Fair.
Like, I think if we had done it again, it wouldn't have felt that way. But you're right. Someone might not pick up the game again if they couldn't get it very well the first time. That being said, I gave it a 2 because of my rule with cheat sheets. This one did have cheat sheets, which is amazing for both inclusivity and for comprehension.
It didn't have one, it had 2 cheat sheets.
2 double-sided cheat sheets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told Ian this, and I'm going to be going to his house to measure the cards, but I'm going to try and make a little passport book that has both the cheat sheets in one envelope. That way you get the trader card and the normal one, because the one thing I didn't like, I'm going to save it for materials. There's a couple things in materials I have to say. This is one of them. Okay. I'm not going to.
Right.
If I do make it, though, I'll drop it in the Discord for everyone.
I'm sure we'll cover it again in materials.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on comprehension?
I don't know. I think I said my piece.
Yeah, I'm covered.
All right. So going into availability then. So you can really only get this online, or if you're lucky, you can find it in a game store. I don't think it's something they necessarily keep in stock at all stores. It's not something that people will necessarily go and asking for. But you can get it on their main site. It's still available. There are no expansions or anything to worry about to collect. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on various board game like retail sites. But I gave it a 2. I think being able to acquire something online is better than some of the games that I like or I played that you just can't get anymore, period. Like, I think Titan is one that's pretty expensive because it's an old game that, because it's old, you can't really get it anymore. This just came out in 2021, so even though it's not as popular, it's still out there.
Yeah.
But you're not getting it off the shelf at Target.
No.
Sorry.
This to me is more of an indie game. So I gave it a 2.5. It's available on Amazon. It's available on sites. And I'm sure there's some game shops that specialize in this type of game that have it on stock, because it's still in print. You can still get it.
I do want to throw out that it's $20 more on Fantasy Flight's website, correct?
It is, and I can't tell you why.
So that's usually an indicator to me that the game was originally at that price, and vendors online are selling it at a lower price to get rid of their inventory. So with that knowledge, I gave it a 1.5 because I feel like it's available now, but it may very soon become only available at like third-party resellers or at Fantasy Flight directly. You won't get it from the larger online like Amazon.
Yeah, see, I took that as they might have a wholesale price versus their suggested retail value, and they're putting it at the retail value and not necessarily how a seller would adjust for wholesale, because there's a whole equation for that.
Which is true. I've never thought about it like that, but usually you'd go directly to Fantasy Flight and contact them with wholesale information, and Amazon is not really known for giving you a deal on wholesale. It's usually you're paying more.
This is true.
That's just me.
All right. I think we can move on from availability. It's usually one of our shorter segments.
Yeah.
To materials. Brooke, I'll let you take over on this one.
Yeah, I tend to steal it. Box was good. I'm gonna let Will talk about the minis, but back to that passport idea. The big issue I have with the materials, there's a lot of materials, there's a lot of things that can get lost. There's no box like organization outside of some protection for the minis. But the fact that it doesn't have enough trader cards as cheat sheets, so you have to like if you want to know what a trader does, um, you have to somehow make a reason for you to take that trader card out of the box with people seeing you do that, which isn't very strategic. And I was having issues with that because I'd love to know what would happen if I revealed myself as a traitor, but I couldn't even think about that because it would just give me a way to even look at that card.
Real quick on the cheat sheets on the bottom right corner, there is a section about how to reveal as a trader.
Yeah, but you don't know what you get to do if you reveal that.
Absolutely,
that was on the
yeah.
other card. So they tell you how to reveal as a trader, and then you get to see if it's actually worth it for you or not in that moment. I did want to highlight from a couple Etsy shops. If you are looking for box organization, there's a nice one that's wood from Gamer Tamer Inserts for $73. And there's also a 3D printable version that's very nice from Printable by Karen for $60. But these are one of the more expensive game inserts that I've found for any of our games.
Yeah, you showed me some of the pictures of the inserts from Etsy. They look really nice.
Yeah, I don't I don't shout out anyone that I don't think is actually giving you like a decent quality for the price. So Will, what do you think about the minis?
Oh, possibly the best part of the game. The minis were surprisingly high quality, very firm, like what's the word? Not PVC, but like
resin.
Yeah, it's like a high quality resin cast. The details on them were surprisingly crisp. Normally, when you get those, minis in like a big box, especially at the price point of like $60, I think between that and what was that other game? Stuffed Fables. Those two are probably the best minis that I have seen come out of a board game box. Incredibly impressive.
And no visible flashing, so if you wanted to paint them, you wouldn't have to sit there with an X-Acto and like try and shave it down.
Well, not just that, the minis themselves are so intricately detailed that they hide the mold lines really nicely.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing for you to like have to chip at to make it seem okay.
Oh, gotcha. I'm sorry. I missed
no, it's okay.
what you're saying.
We were saying the same thing. I was using art words and you were using like normal game words.
Yeah, I gave it a 3 for materials. Between all the things, like the spinners on the board worked fairly well. They weren't like loose. They stayed in place unless you purposely moved them. The board had nice art and everything on it. It seemed, I liked it.
The board was very visually interesting.
Arts on the cards were good. They had whole stories for your characters on the backs of their character cards. A lot of detail went into it, and in this aspect, I think it is one of the it's a good setup for materials and for the price, even though it's a 60 to 80.
Yeah,
it's just a lot. Just know that you're going to open the box and go, "Oh my god, how do I do this?"
Absolutely, yeah, that is fair.
Yeah, it's a little daunting when you first see all of the stuff.
Yeah, like all the cards, all the colors, all the figures, all the everything.
Especially because the cards just come in baggies, which I know will split open after like 3 uses.
One of them already started to when we were playing.
Yeah, that's because then the cards are just going to be loose.
It was already like that. I didn't break it. Don't tell Larry.
Now we'll find out if Larry actually listens to this or not.
Yeah. This is how we'll know.
But it's done by Fantasy Flight, who are the same people who did Cosmic Encounter, the ships that we always talk about.
Yeah, high quality minis right there.
Yeah, they're very good at minis. They also do the X-Wing Squadron stuff.
Oh yeah, those are really cool games. Yeah, they've definitely like spec'd hard into their mini game.
Yeah, they have.
All right. You want to move into gameplay now?
Yeah, are we all set for materials?
I think I'm good. Yeah. They're just tiny.
I'm curious on what scores were for everyone. I think we didn't actually cover scores.
I gave it a 2. Just because of the box organization is always a bit of a sticking point for me, and just the sheer amount of things needs a decent amount of organization.
I gave it a 1 because of how small the cards were, and they're already kind of peeling, and that's what you use most of the time.
Fair. I'm a sucker for minis, so I gave it a 3 for the minis alone. Well, that's not fair. I gave it a 3 minis as well as the functionality of the board.
Yeah, the board was really good. I will say that.
The board was very nicely detailed. All of the art for the fact cards were pretty cool as well. I liked the little breakdown of the ship and that it looks cool. It looks like a ship diagram. It helped set the theme very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if nothing else, it's very thematic. So yeah, going into gameplay, setup is a nightmare.
Horrible.
There's like you said, not only is it's exacerbated by the fact that there's only like 5 bags, and there are 6, 7 types of small, 8, 9, 10 types of small cards, because you have the skills, you have the treachery deck, you have the waypoints, you have the items, you have the character traits, all packed into one bag to get the spell book, all packed into one deck together, or one bag together. And the same thing for the larger cards too, which are the character cards, the loyalty cards, the item cards.
Don't forget the lore cards.
The horror cards. Or lore, yeah. Or mythos, that's what it
Yeah.
was.
Oh,
Mythos
sorry,
cards.
Mythos. I'm just
Who
gonna
play enough
read.
games, they'll melt together.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read my notes straight off the paper. Setup sucked, and takedown was even worse. Took forever. I didn't give it any points. I think this is the first time I did not even give a half of a point. It's got nothing on setup.
I felt bad that it wouldn't get any points, so I gave it 1 point. Because, I mean, at least we were able to set it up. But, oh my god, what was set up?
For me, this would be a deterrent to play. Like, I would not open this box unless Ian or Larry would let me be, like, game board princess and just sit in the corner while they set it up. Because it's just, I know I'd mess it up somehow.
I will be completely honest. When Ian first started setting this up, I actually was getting anxious about how many pieces there were. It's like Mousetrap, but worse somehow. at least at the end of Mousetrap, you get to knock the whole thing down and see how well it worked. This is just 52 pickup.
Can you imagine if you had like an angry person that flips boards with this game?
I don't think they would be invited to this game.
Yeah, no. If you have a friend that flips boards when they get upset, like, yeah, keep that friend around, help them work through their stuff. But this is not the game to play with them.
It is not.
I'm still looking for the pawn, Ian.
That's that. What is that? Flip board is like 8 hours of reset up.
It's just 8 hours to get it back in the box. I'm pretty sure, not even to reset it up, just to fix it.
Plus, those minis are durable, but I would not want to test how durable they are.
I don't know.
No.
I'm gonna say with pretty decent confidence that they are more durable than 40K minis out of like Games Workshop.
That doesn't mean much. The quality's kind of dropped off.
It definitely has, and they I mean, yes and no. So they're in between switching back to metal, from what I've gathered, which is kind of cool. But like also lead poisoning.
Yay! Just don't lick your 40K minis.
I will lick whatever mini I want to lick. Thank you very much. I don't have any metal.
Look, as an artist that constantly uses cadmiums, what's a little lead?
Yeah.
My brain's not getting any smarter anyway.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, you still got time.
No.
Has exactly 1 year and 6 months.
I don't think that's true.
No, the frontal cortex doesn't fully go until I think like 26 or 27.
1 year and 6 months.
I've
1 year and 6 months.
Okay, 1 year and 6 months. There it is. You heard it here first.
You're 24, right, Ace?
Nope.
Oh.
We talked about
that's
this
right.
literally when we played the game.
Yep, that's right. You're 22.
Just like the
22.
fortune teller woman said.
You're right, not 1 year and 6 months.
It wouldn't even be 6 months. My birthday's next week.
Wow, I'm dropping the ball everywhere here.
Yeah.
A little bit. The ball is
3
actually an
years
egg
and a
and it
week.
just splattered on the floor. You threw the ball, turned out to be an egg, just shattered everywhere.
Oh,
Any other notes on setup?
it was
I
a lot.
hated it.
It was so much.
Yeah,
It was
I
a
don't
lot.
even-
It's hard to explain. The game is difficult to explain, and I know that's not like the end all be all of games, because a lot of them are like oh, you'll get it once you like go through a round. Like even like Catan's like that. Catan's good, but the explanation in this while doing the setup feels like the worst way to do this, and that's what
Yeah.
we kind of tried, and it didn't work out. So
This is the
Yeah.
only time that I miss like live streaming it just to show people how terrible it was.
It was one of the reasons I was really hoping Larry would make it for the game, because I was hoping he might have better tips on setup and everything.
yeah,
Because I felt like he got it done pretty quick, but as I like think back on it, I think it took him about the same amount of time, honestly, to get everything set up and then go through the rules and all that, which are extensive. Going through the rules, I think, is another part of this that we haven't touched on yet for setup. But if you have new players, there's a lot to cover.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't be comfortable telling someone to play this without having someone who's played it before.
Yeah, and even when you played it before, there are like rules that you either forget about or through like word of mouth. Like I was talking with Larry after we finished the game, talking about how when the monsters spawn, when Mother Hydra spawns, I don't want to use a derogatory term for the deep ones. They start at the front of the ship from the point that you rolled. But Larry had been playing it where they start where you rolled, because the areas are all numbered, but they're separated on different sides of the ship. So it's actually supposed to be quite a bit harder than he was playing with it. But he learned it from someone else who learned it from someone else, and it kind of created a culture of this is how the rules work, because no one really had to go in and check it because they didn't challenge anyone on it.
Classic D&D rules.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like that's how I learned 4th edition.
And so even if you've been experienced in the game and you're teaching it to someone else, you might be teaching them wrong. That's one of the reasons I look through the rule book when I cover a game, just so that I make sure I'm on the same page. And even then, they did have a diagram for like first play setup, and they have recommendations for first time players, which is nice. I won't discourage that, but it's still so much.
It was so much.
Just know you're going to have to put a lot into it. Like, that's the main thing.
So
That all
moving on-
being said,
yeah.
oh sorry.
Yeah, no,
That all being so, if you don't know, we're currently recording from different areas because
Yeah.
of snow. We were trying to ignore it, but there's no way for us to like. Normally, we can look at each other and see when one starts talking, but we're currently all in different locations without any ability to see.
I can only edit so much.
Have fun.
Oh yeah, I know.
You're gonna have a blast, buddy.
I wanted to start going into rate of play.
Yeah.
No,
No.
no rate of play.
No rate of play. It wasn't that bad.
What did you give it for rate of play?
1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
Really? I gave it a 3. I was never bored. There was no
What?
moment I was like, I would like to stop now, or I would like to talk to somebody, which is hard because I am chatty.
Bored was definitely not the problem. Overwhelmed was the problem for me. It was every turn with the Mythos card, and it like I would expect the Mythos to be pulled at the end of all 4 of our turns, and it makes the game. Although this game was already 2 hours long with us pulling the Mythos card at the end of each one of our turns, I feel like that would make it way too long. But the Mythos cards just basically you could plan something out for your turn, or not even your turn, but basically kind of try and figure out what's going to happen the next turn. And then you pull a Mythos card, and you'd have the fish people all of a sudden destroy half of your ship. And there's just like, well, there goes all of my plans. And now we have no food, or we have no fuel, or it's just, it was a lot. And I feel like that was kind of the point of the game, is to constantly keep the pressure on and keep like things moving in that way. But it would have been nice to get at least one positive Mythos card in there somewhere in the line.
So I like to think that the rate of play was easier because me and Ian were passing out a lot of the cards during what would have been downtime. We were trying to stay on top of like everyone getting their skill cards so it would like run smoother. And if you don't have someone doing that, it's going to be more difficult, so I give it a 1.
That's fair. I think that everyone likes being banker, though. So I feel like someone would take that up anyway.
That's because banker cheats, right? Ian?
I didn't cheat all that much that you know of.
Yeah, you wouldn't figure it out. He was the banker.
You can't prove it.
I got the
capitalism works.
I have the IRS on my side.
I don't know. I gave it a 3 for rate of play. I think it definitely depends on your play style and what you're used to in games. For me, the reason I stayed so engaged was I'm constantly looking for some reason to believe that one of my crewmates is working against me, and trying to find ways to solve the problems that occur each turn. Because every turn, something usually goes wrong. And while that can be distressing, it also means there's always something to do. What you want to do might change by the time it comes all the way around to you again, but you have something to do.
Yeah.
And you're always playing cards, even on other people's turns. I felt engaged, and even without, if we were to slow down handing out the cards, people still talk. And that's one of the things I like about the social engagement games, is that like, even the conversation we have, someone could let something slip that suddenly sounds real friggin' suspicious. More than once, our idle conversation had Ace or Will or Brooke believing that I was the one who was the traitor.
Because you were.
But I wasn't.
You slipped.
That's because you're always the traitor.
I do make a good traitor. I won't lie, but
he's got it going for him.
Yeah, it's the grin.
It is.
It is the grin.
You do that at work all the time, and I still think that you're messing with me. I want that vape back.
But for someone who may not be always looking for an angle or looking to try to grab at victory or anything like that, this might come across as kind of boring. And you might just feel like you're going through the motions to get it over with. And I get that too.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed.
So yeah, I really do think that's very much up to personal preference on how you play games and what you think of this particular game. And it sounds like we had a lot of variation, because we got a 1.5, a 1, and 2 3s. So
yeah,
I think this might be our most divisive game outside of Spyfall.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm glad I didn't play that game.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't know what that is.
You played with us and Max, didn't you?
I didn't play it.
Oh, you were just recording.
This was before Will had a spot to play.
Yeah, I guess we did it with Chris.
You did do it, Chris.
Yeah.
Will was just sound guy back then.
Look how far you've come.
I know. I actually get to play the games now. I don't just get to sit there and watch you guys play. I still want to play Strawberry Fields. I really wanted to play that game.
I'll bring it over. I still
Sounds
have
like a Twitch stream.
Yeah, 100%. Will gets to play the games that he only got to watch you guys play.
Everyone good on Ready to Play?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
Price then. So as we talked about before, this is $79.99 on Fantasy Flight's main site. From other retailers, you can get it starting at 60, going up to like 65. I saw it like 70. I saw one that was 85 from a retailer, but I think that's kind of outside the norm.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's in the range of 60 to 80. I think is a fair judgment on that, which I don't see all that much wrong with. I know, like, for people who are not into like board game culture, $80 is a lot to drop on a board game. Like, I get that, but I also have $80 board games. Cosmic Encounter was $60. It's not uncommon to drop a lot more money than that on board games. I gave it a 2. I felt like it's not great, and I realize that my own bias is kind of affecting that, but it's not bad. I think it could be worse.
I'm usually a stickler with this, and I gave it a 2 as well, because it did give you a lot of materials. It's not like you opened up the box and went, "Where did my money go?" There was clearly you clearly saw where the money went. It went into the writing and it went into the board and the minis.
I so just as kind of my baseline with this, so Stuffed Fables, which minis are very similar, which we've already established. The writing and the sort of setting is also relatively similar. Speaking, I think that was around about the same price. I gave it a 2 before I get too ahead of myself. But I think with the minis and the quality of the game board and some of the unique features, I think that 65 to 80 is pretty fair. I know the minis alone would probably fetch like $45, $50. So for having well-written character backstories on top of that, I think it's a fair price.
Mm-hmm. I don't really know the price of board games. I gave it 2, because I thought of it in video game terms, and $60 is a AAA board or AAA video game price.
Yeah, well, it's 70 now.
Yeah, that's going up. And then what was it that guy from Ubisoft said? Get ready to not own your own games.
He did say that.
Yeah. Well, that's already something that's happening now. The developers for Grand Theft Auto want to make it basically a pay by hour. They're trying to bring us back to the 80s.
Yeah.
You get on the internet and you pay per minute.
Got to put another quarter in.
Yeah.
God, I'm glad I like retro video games.
Yeah, I'll probably be playing a lot less video games. I mean, subscription fees are one thing for games that are constantly updating, like Fortnite. I won't be afraid to say I play Fortnite occasionally. But occasionally. Like, I mean, not too much. I'm not Larry, but I could. This is all off topic, I know, but I could not see myself paying by hour for a game. Like, no way.
Yeah.
If I really like a game, I end up putting like 300 hours into that thing, like I did for Mountain Blade. I could not imagine having to pay so much money for that.
Well, so the one thing I will say that video games are not at their all-time high. First of all, we do need to remember that. So like early video games were like at like 120, I think was the highest they were at, but 160. This was in the 80s. So that translates to several $100s today. But more importantly, like I think the reason people are so upset with stuff like Grand Theft Auto being like pay by hour is because they're marketing it as an online game. They know people are not going to play it for story. They've already given Rockstar is a company that was known for their high quality story. This is so off topic. I'm sorry. We're just going to cut this all out.
No, we'll keep it in. I will say one of the reasons I think Rockstar wants to do this whole pay by hour thing is because they're not going to release another game for 10 years.
This is true. They'll release Red Dead Redemption 3 in 2035, and that will be it.
Yeah.
Now, to bring this back to us, though, do you think that this increase will have an effect on the board game community where we see an influx of people trying to get that storyline fix at not $100, $200, whatever it'll end up being?
I've definitely noticed that in recent times with the popularity of D&D entering the mainstream, people are realizing that I don't have to go out and mod Skyrim to oblivion. To get the story that I want out of it. I can just go and get a couple of my friends and we can go and create our story set in this universe if we are so inclined. Like, Lord knows that's how my brother and what's his face got into it, Sean.
I think that if for things like TTRPGs, it might go up a bit over time. Especially larger companies like Wizards are always going to charge as much as their fan base will allow them to before they call for blood. But for board games, I mean, these aren't like, with video games at least, you have massive amounts of teams working on graphic design, voice acting, narrative, storyboarding. For board games, you don't have to pay quite as many people.
Yeah, I didn't even mean in the sense of cost. I more meant in the sense of like the community growing. Like, do you think there's going to be a resurgence in those board game nights that like we had as kids?
Oh, I definitely, absolutely.
Our jobs depend on it.
Yeah. Any final notes on the price?
No.
Not really.
All right. Then I think that brings us to extras.
You're all going to hate me.
Am I?
I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 2. So
I gave it a 3.
Oh, okay, because like I don't want anything else. This game did not make me go, this would be great with expansions or more characters. No, this is good enough. I'm glad they put it in different languages, but they can stop.
They can stop. No more languages. 12 is enough.
Language is fine, but like don't add anything else to this poor box. It won't close.
The one thing that I want to bring up that's different than a lot of games that we cover for the extras, while this game doesn't have expansions, I've been led to believe that this is part of an extended universe, correct?
It is.
Which I think is a kind of a neater concept for these sort of one-off kind of board games where there's no real logical way to add an expansion to it, is to tie it into an extended universe. And now I can go out and I can buy maybe not the sequel to this game, but something else that exists in the same universe. I'm already familiar with kind of the basic plot, and I can kind of keep it going from there.
So there's a few things I wanted to cover on that. So the extended universe, we'll call it the Cthulhu universe, the CU. The CEU?
Okay.
Yeah, Cthulhu Extended Universe.
Yeah.
It's the Fantasy Flight's Arkham Horror Files is what they're called. It's a bunch of novels and short stories and board games. It starts with the Arkham Horror. They have a card game for Arkham Horror, Elder Signs, Eldritch Horror, and Mansions of Madness, which we either did cover or almost covered on the podcast. I don't remember which.
I don't think we've covered it yet.
We did Mansion of Madness.
Did we do Betrayal?
Oh no, we did
We
Betrayal.
did Betrayal.
We wanted to do Mansions of Madness and we couldn't get a copy, so we did Betrayal instead.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will get to it eventually.
Yeah, I was right
Yeah.
there with you. Right in the background.
Fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And the people who originally released the Arkham Horror board game was Chaosium in '87, and that is the same people who do Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
So it has its own little family of Eldritch Horror in there.
I'm happy to see that they're a big family.
The one thing I wanted to mention as far as the extras though, like for my score that affected it, is it does have some ability to customize the game from play to play. So it doesn't necessarily have expansions, but you do have the Cultist, which we didn't play with through our playthrough. But it's a third loyalty card option where you don't want the boat to sink or die until the very last turn. That's the goal of the Cultist, and you have all the character cards which you can add or subtract from a game depending upon which abilities you might want to have or how new a player is. So there are ways to customize it and play something that feels like a slightly different game each time. The Cultist would be taking one of the roles from the Innocents, in this case, the humans. So in theory, you'd have two hybrid traders and then one cultist who might come out at the last minute and stab everyone in the back. someone you think is on your side until
Yeah,
they very suddenly
until
aren't.
right at the victory.
Wild card.
Exactly. That was the reason I gave it a 3. On top of the fact, like Brooke said, it doesn't really need an expansion. There's quite enough here as it is.
Yeah, this is the example of you can still get a 3 by not giving extra things.
I gave it a 1 because I didn't understand this ranking part. So I will give it a 3.
Okay, there's a little definition next to extras.
Yeah, but I didn't get it. And you spelled
Okay.
opportunities wrong.
Way to call me out, man.
Sorry. Do you not upload these? Are these not part of it?
No.
Oh. You spelled opportunities the best I've ever seen, actually. It's so
I have
correct.
With being dyslexic, I have to like type it out phonetically, and sometimes spell check does not catch it.
I
Yeah.
don't know how to
Especially on
spell-
like InDesign and those things. I don't think they have necessarily spell check.
Yeah.
No. No.
No, I remember when we were making it. We didn't have the spell check option open because we had to redo all the rubrics about a year and a half ago now.
A little less
Yeah.
than that. I think it was.
It was pretty early on when we decided to split into the board game and tabletop game rubrics.
Oh, you're right. That's right. That was the first redraft, not the second redraft.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So like, I think it was like almost 6 months in we did that.
That was very early on.
Yeah. We did it at your house.
You do a lot of things at my house.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so were we all set on extras?
I think so.
Yep.
I say so. Does that move us on to personal?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Ace,
Cool.
did you enjoy the game?
Oh, I think I did. So this grading system has gotten me all confused, and I gave it a pretty low score. I think the lowest I've ever given a score based on 3 examples. But I mean I liked it. It was fun. But I like hanging out, and I like trader games, so that always bumps it up. I just like lying to people, especially people that I know. And I'll do that in my day-to-day life. But what I really like about trader games is that people can't get mad at me. People usually get mad at me when I do it in real life. But in a board game where I'm specifically allowed, you give me like the send-off. I love to lie. It's great. So I gave it 2.
There's a reason I
gave it-
invite you to these games.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3. I hate this genre. Love this game.
I gave it a 2. It was a pleasant game. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't the best.
I gave it a 3. I'm sure that's also no surprise. I also love being able to kind of lie and kind of detect people who are lying between in an area with no real consequences for that kind of behavior. It's nice. It's refreshing and gets the blood pumping a little bit. But I do like hidden role games. I love the narrative on it. I enjoy the setting. Every one of the Mythos cards didn't just have awful things that happened. They also had a little biography on each thing and how it came to be. It tells a story as you go, I think. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So I gave it a 3. For all the other lower scores I might have given, I feel like this is the one that if I could give it a 4, I would. I really had a lot of fun.
So would you recommend it though? You had fun.
I had fun. I only gave it a 2 for recommendation. And I think that's being generous.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 too, just because of the time commitment and like the setup is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
I gave it a 1.5 because I can recommend this game confidently to one type of person. That is Ian or Ace.
Okay. Well. All right.
So,
He's not
the two
wrong,
best
though.
I mean, so I gave it a 1 for recommendation because I would recommend it to people who played it before. It's like, oh, you want to open up Unfathomable? Yeah, I've done that. I know what I'm doing. That's who I'd recommend it for. The entry barrier is a lot for me, so I didn't give it high on the recommendation scale.
My recommendation would definitely come with warnings, though. Like, even at a 2, I would definitely go, like, if you have no time and you're really good at reading a lot, then yes.
Yeah, it's. I was kind of on the same boat. I would not recommend this to everyone. I feel like unless you have already played it or you're familiar with some more complicated games like Twilight Imperium or what's another example?
Betrayal.
Scythe.
Scythe.
Yeah. Someone like that would definitely get a kick out of this. Someone whose foray into complicated board games ends at Settlers of Catan will probably not enjoy getting this and opening it and playing it for the first time and saying,
You know.
it takes how many hours?
It's not a first time board game thing, and not a young person board game thing either. Like, what was the recommended age on the box? Does anyone know offhand?
12 plus, I think.
Recommendation is for ages 14 and up.
14 plus.
Okay.
The Board Game Geek community said 12 and up.
I cannot imagine a 12-year-old playing this game, but okay.
I cannot imagine a 14-year-old playing this game.
14 pushing it.
Yeah.
It'd be a very specific type of 14-year-old that goes, oh yes, 2-hour games.
2 hour at minimum. The playtime on this is set from 120 to 240 minutes. And our game, if you'll recall, ended when we were a little over halfway to the end.
Yeah.
So in a full game, it could go a whole lot longer.
Oh god.
4 to
Yeah.
6 hours, maybe.
The one that I play tested with Ace went from like 7 to midnight.
Yeah, I got home at like 1, so.
I remember you texted me that night, and I was like, oh god. Like 12:50, and Ian's got to open in the morning.
And the humans still didn't win.
Yeah. Another round of, oh, things are going bad. Oh, things are going worse.
To be fair, it was me and TJ who, if you were to pick someone to play as a trader in a hidden roll game, and you want them to win, TJ is the person to pick.
Is your guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't say that in a mean way. I find it admirable.
Just to clarify, just, you know.
Yeah, just put it out there.
But yeah, it that certainly did the humans no favors.
No, it did not.
No, it does.
All right. We'll roll right into replay value then. I gave this a 3 for replay value. I played it twice in a week, and I'd play it again if I had the time for it.
I gave it a 3 as well for similar reasons, except having played it already.
Give it a 2. It's definitely a game worth replaying, but I don't know if I would enjoy the game replaying it, but I do see the value in replaying it.
So I'm gonna give it a 1.5. Because the thing says, how often would you take it off the shelf? I, with the time commitment and like having to have like a certain group of people, I feel like I wouldn't do it that often if I owned it. But it is fun, and yeah, two in 1 week, and I had a good time both times. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, I would definitely take it off the shelf frequently for a board game of its magnitude. I should clarify. It's not the kind of thing you can do 3 times a week because it can take 4 hours, and no one has that kind of time. And if you do, God bless you. I wish.
Can't all be retired, Ian.
Or independently wealthy. Don't forget that option.
Or college students.
Well, okay. I don't think they have the time. I think they just make the time They
don't have
procrastinate the time. They
They have poor
procrastinate the time.
management.
Correct.
Fair enough.
And they don't sleep. We like to sleep now.
I do like sleep.
Sleep is so good.
I don't know. I'm not lame yet, so
Give it
I'll
a
stay
couple
awake
years,
forever.
then. Give it a couple years, and you'll be buying specific things to make your bed even comfier.
Yep.
Give it like 5 years.
I got 7
Not
hours
even.
of sleep last night instead of 8. My body hates me because of it. God damn it, Will.
Will you stop dropping things?
No, I won't. It's my job.
Shall we
yeah,
drop right into our sliding scales?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See what I did there? Slid it right in.
Slid it right in.
Smooth transition. So
I-
classic, innovative.
I gave it an innovative too. I haven't played anything like this, but at the same time, it does come with some familiar concepts.
Yeah, that I gave it the same score for basically the same reasons. I liked the things that it did differently, but it kept things new while still kind of remaining the same. And I'm still definitely like a little green when it comes to a lot of these board games, but I'm starting to pick up on tropes and trends.
Yeah, for me, it definitely felt like a DM-less board game, like when they try and give you a campaign without having to have a DM there to be there. So
Yeah, it does kind of have that vibe.
Mhm.
that's why I said, like, there's some things, like, a lot of the mechanics are the same as in those DM-less TTRPGs.
I put it down the middle for classic innovative.
So a 0.
Yeah, it worked out to a 0, but I meant it as a compliment.
So, like, would you say that it's good or bad? Yeah, so good in that way, right? If you were to try to assign, it's not important.
But, like, no, well, because like I would put it on both. It's got
Okay.
classic trader game elements that I think it does
Mhm.
pretty good. And I think it innovates on trader game elements in a good way, but I think it's still like the classic thing with like a unique twist, but I wouldn't call that innovative. I would call it just a thing, because it's not big enough to be innovative, it's not small enough to not be counted. So I'd put it at like, I don't know, a 2.5 both ways, a 2 both ways.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I liked it. The problem is I liked it, but the way I'm having a problem. I have problems with scales. I've always had problems with scales.
He's put
Okay.
a 5 on the sliding scale somehow.
Yeah. I'm having issues. So I gave it.
It makes sense.
Thank you. I gave it a 0 because I liked it.
But
Guys,
if you
don't
were
worry.
like a value, you would say like a 2 for how it had performed as an example of a game that takes both elements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you were to have to give it coordinates on a alignment compass, where
Oh my
would you
gosh,
say?
we are not making this a plot system.
I'm gonna keep
Honestly,
Making a graph.
I'll be honest.
Will
A
has brought
compass
this up,
might
like,
help
3
me.
times.
A-
Will has brought up making like a XY axis like 3 times. I'm not doing it.
I think it's a great idea. I can use y equals mx plus b, and that is the only time that formula will ever be relevant.
I'll be honest, for the amount of people we've had on that say it's kind of a bit of both, so it's a 0, I don't hate the idea anymore.
Oh God.
Let this be
Please
Will's
don't make me
one
do
good
this.
idea for the year.
Yes,
I'll
but
make
I'm
it.
the one that has to put it on the thing.
I'll make it. I'll learn how to do Procreate.
No. Okay, moving on.
I gave it a 2 for innovative. I think that it doesn't really. It's new and fascinating in certain ways. In other ways, it's also taking a lot of the elements from the Battlestar Galactica board game that Corey Konichka also made, or at least worked on. But it also is kind of clunky. I feel like some of the elements are not. They're new and they're interesting, but they're not fully thought out. I took like a point off for that, and then I'll probably go more into that when we hit the complex versus simple section too.
Mm-hmm. Are we heading to that one?
We are.
Yes.
Okay, I gave a real score on this, guys. I gave it a 2 on the complex. So
Same.
I thought it was pretty complex.
It is. It is.
It's complex, but I will make the differentiation that it's not complex entirely in a bad way. It's definitely got some bad complexity to it, but it's also got some kind of like minutia to it that's maybe kind of good. Takes a while to master the game, so to speak.
Yeah. Absolutely. I given it a 2 in complex because overall the mechanics are engaging, the story is fun, but they don't all work together quite right. It's like if you have an engine or one of the pistons isn't firing at the same speed as all the others, it's just kind of going off. It's clunky.
It's knocking.
Yeah, it's knocking.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You got to lower the compression a little, but it'll be fine.
I think it's rough around the edges, but overall it's a good example of a game that's fairly complex. This ain't no Candyland.
How would it compare in the like Candyland on one end, like Heat Death of the Universe on the other hand?
Are you asking me what's the most complex board game?
Well, we all know that's Battle for North Africa.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably the one that no one's finished.
They've gotten close though. I mean, it would probably help if the game wasn't designed to be played out over the course of the length of World War II. Like, I feel like if you shorten it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
Brooke,
I,
your
like-
thoughts on? Yeah.
Can I redo my things that I will not do? Because we're going to add that to the list of Star Wars and football and Shadowrun. I'm now adding whatever the game you just said was.
Oh, we're never doing Battle for North
I
Africa.
would not.
We
do
would.
that
Okay.
to you.
I don't think
you
you
as a joke
can
for
do
April
Shadowrun.
Fools.
I'm just adding that to my hard stop list.
Do people do Shadowrun as a? Do you guys do TTRPGs? Oh, I guess
Yeah,
I
board
did a
games.
TTRPG once.
Yeah.
I did. I was there.
Um,
Sorry, guys, forgot.
I will say by far, this is the closest I've ever had to a 3 on complex. I enjoyed this game's complexity so much, but if they had just like streamlined it a little bit more with some of the language and some of the font type choices, like this would have been a 3 in the best way for me. But I couldn't give it that.
Going into our final scores, then. Someone get a calculator ready so that I don't have to.
What do I have to do?
Get a calculator out so you can.
I have a
figure out the number.
calculator. I am a calculator.
All right, excellent. So I gave this a 32 out of 42.
What am I doing with the calculator?
Hold on, I'm doing it.
We're gonna find
Okay.
an average.
That's fine.
Brooke, what's your score?
28 and a half.
All right, 28.5.
Is that what that says?
Mine is 26 and a half. And Ace, what is your number?
Put it like it's like
Okay. Divide that by 4 for the lowest score we've ever got at 26 and a quarter or 3/4.
I don't think that's our lowest.
No, we've had lower.
What's the lowest?
Not
We
by
got like
much.
I mean, Spyfall, Munchkin.
you gave
Yeah.
Munchkin bad. Munchkin's got
lowest
funny guys.
Average, not just
You don't
lowest
listen to our
score,
podcast,
lowest
do you?
average score. Normally,
I don't
we
listen to
average out like
podcasts.
the 30s.
I think Munchkin was like a 23 average.
Oh,
I don't have
really?
time for podcasts. I talk to you white people already. I have to listen to your podcast now?
Oh God.
Sorry.
We've done enough.
I'm on the
It's
podcast.
You heard me.
Get out of here.
I will not be silent.
He will not. Oh, I hit my computer.
He was silent.
That definitely is one of our lower scores for sure.
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting considering how much we did like the game, but there was just a lot with it that there was a lot of problems.
I don't think it scores well, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, if you're willing to look past like the setup and the intuitiveness of the game, I think it's worth it.
The good thing about this game, aside from the fact that it is basically Among Us the board game, is none of the flaws are so egregious that the game is unplayable.
Yeah.
All of the flaws can be played around.
But when you write them down on a piece of paper, they do look a little daunting.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, this is when you grade anything, it really points out all of the obvious flaws. Once you're playing the game, I'm just going to say this real quick. Like, our grading sheets really are very just subjective to us. It's not a great way to grade the game because it's always just subjective opinions on everything. It's less like, is it a good or a bad game, and more like, do we like the game?
It's good to assign it a value, but at the end of the day, these are just here so that we can talk about each thing.
Yeah, they're all arbitrary values. Ace gave it a 5 on the sliding scale.
I did do that.
And I haven't been adding his up, but he also just said give it a 20, so...
Yeah, I did it. I changed... It says 18, that's wrong.
Numbers are made up.
Numbers are wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, we try and be as impartial as we can be by having all of these specific points. But that's also why we always have guests and we always have multiple people. It's not just 2 people in a room. There's usually 4, sometimes 5 people in a room, all talking about one game because everyone's opinions are different, and that's the best part of the community.
Sure.
You're right. I hate boats. If this game didn't take place on a boat, I think I'd like it more. And that's my opinion.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. Before I go, I wanted to announce that we'll be getting more active on our Twitch channel. So go and follow us at twitch.tv/withbards. We're making plans to start streaming video games like Minecraft and Valheim, along with other things like snack reviews and mini painting. You can get in touch with us at dancingwiththebards@gmail.com or follow us on Blue Sky at dancewithbards@bluesky.social. We're also available on Mastodon at bards@creator.gg, or you can find us on Facebook. And all those accounts have links to our Discord page where you can interact with our community. Hope everyone has a great start to their new year.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
That's right.
Happy New Year! The year is
We're gonna upload
new.
this in February, knowing our luck.
Yeah.
Ow.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Listen.